arguing with the Pharisee. Jesus is constantly arguing with the Pharisee.
When he
He's
says
annoyed
this is
by
the
them.
command of God, what do you understand by that? Are you trying to say the Pharisees has a different God than his God?
No,
Who's
no,
God?
because
How many gods do you believe
he's
in?
using their own standard
Yes, yes.
to show them that they are not consistent.
And that standard, wait, wait.
They are
Okay, good. So when you say,
because he's using their own
yeah,
standard.
when you say their own standard,
Yes.
where did they get the standard from? From where?
Their God, which the Jews call.
So no, why do you say Jewish
Yahweh,
God? Why do you say
Yahweh.
Jewish God? Is Yahweh not the God of Jesus?
Yes, he's a God of
Yes.
Yes, but
Not very consistent.
yes.
If he's the God of Jesus, so
He's
when
the
Jesus
God
says,
of Jesus,
but what?
as you can see in the
Was
in
he the
New
God of
Testament-
Moses?
Wait.
Was he
As
the
you
God of
can
Moses?
Wait, as you can see in the New Testament,
Yeah.
Jesus is actually changing this law.
No, he's not.
Because-
He's saying
yes,
he's using the law of the Old Testament
he's-
to remind them
Yes, he's
that they are
using-
being inconsistent.
yes, the things that Jesus.
I think you have not understood even after reading it. I'm sorry to say that. Not only the fact that you do not read the Bible, but you do not even understand it after reading it. They were telling Jesus' disciples, yes, they were complaining to Jesus that look at your disciples, they do not even wash their hands after eating. Then Jesus rebukes them from the Exodus, from the Bible from the Torah that they believe in, by saying that you do not even keep the command of God. The command of God is that anyone who curses the mother or father shall be put to death. This command of God is what Jesus believes in. That's why he said no one should actually disobey the command of God. No one should break the law. The law is the command of God. So when Jesus says this is a command of God, he knew exactly what he was saying, that the law that was given to Moses, the God of Moses, which is the God of Jesus, says to them, anyone who curses the mother or father shall be put to death. You know after how many years did Jesus come after Moses? Yes, at least 1200 years after him. More than 1000 years after. Even after that, he's repeating the command of God. Why? If the Old Testament was no more relevant, no more applicable after 1000 years, after 1200 years, why do you think Jesus is reminding them of this Old Testament? Because it was still applicable to them. It was still applicable and it was still the command of God. I know you're reluctant because it goes against your pacifist nature. Your pacifist nature is not from the Bible, it's from the modern day.
Have you read
What do you say? From the modern, from your modern upbringing and from your modern understanding of the world, not from the Bible.
Have you read
Now
the
wait.
Have you read the Sermon on the Mount?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah.
Now,
So could you please read
wait.
it again?
Before you do that, you asked me to bring to you the verse about the sword. Yes, that Jesus said about his disciples. 32. So it's in Luke 22:32. No, not 32, 36 I think. Here it is. Let's read from 35. Then Jesus asked them, when I sent you without purse, bag or sandals, did you lack anything? Nothing, they answered. He said to them, but now if you have a purse, take it, and also a bag. And if you don't have a sword, sell your cloak and buy one. Read it in context if you want. Read it in context if you want. Yeah, what I wanted to say is this is from your liberal secular understanding that you are being a pacifist. But if you read the Bible, you wouldn't be such a pacifist because Jesus himself wasn't such a pacifist. Most of the time at least. He said, I've not come to bring peace, but to bring sword. And this sword wasn't just something which was a parable. It means that those people...
So what about the passage where
No,
Jesus-
answer this first. No, before you go somewhere else, answer this.
Because you're saying that Jesus saying...
Yeah, I'm talking to the camera.
What about-
The question I asked you was this.
What-
Why would you say
what
to
about-
sell even your cloak
But wait.
and buy a sword?
What about when Jesus said, whoever
Lives by the sword,
words,
dies by
perish
the sword.
sword.
Yes. But
So-
answer this one now.
So he's contradicting himself.
Yeah, he is actually, if you read this. Have you got anything to say for yourself?
I should read it.
Yeah, read it. Read the whole passage, read the whole chapter if you want. You won't be able to change the context of that. Because at the end of the day, you will realize that Jesus is not always a pacifist. Do you remember what he did to the money changers? The ones in the synagogue? Yes? He turned the tables upside down basically. He drove them with a whip.
I know.
He drove them with a whip. A whip is not something a pacifist, especially like you, would use, because you wouldn't even have a defense for your country. You would let your own people be slaughtered by the enemy if they wanted to. Not everyone is a pacifist in the world. We have to realize and we have to prepare for such a thing. That there are people who are out there who are pure evil, who want to kill and destroy people who really want to live in peace. So we have to be prepared for that. And that is the reason every country in the world has some or the other form of defense. If they don't have a defense of themselves, they will actually employ other people to help them defend themselves.
Luke 22.
22:36.
Let me check here.
Yeah, check it in your Italian version, in any version you want, no
NIV,
problem.
what is NIV?
New International Version.
Let me check.
Okay?
So would you have an army or not now that you saw that?
I'm still not convinced. Maybe my Bible might be lying.
Couldn't get any more clear than that.
Yeah. He says, sell your cloak. I mean, in order to buy a sword. That's because when you don't have enough money, you need to barter it for something else.
Exactly.
22:36.
So if you follow Jesus, your whole narrative of being a pacifist crumbles.
Luke 22, verse 36.
36.
Yeah. You can put it in context. I don't know. Slice it, dice it, do anything you want, but the sword remains.
He also said you live by this word, perish by this word. So
it's contradicting at the most. Yeah? It's contradicting himself then. He's telling them to buy a sword and then he's saying...
He's your prophet anyway.
Sorry? But that's not my Bible. Let's try. Exactly. They do that all the time, don't they? My Jesus, the one that I believed in, wasn't crucified. Yes? Especially for the sins of people. Because Allah doesn't require no blood to forgive. Yeah, by the way, earlier I wanted to show you the difference between forgiveness and payment.
22:36.
Yeah, 36. 22:36. Look. Yeah, the difference between payment and forgiveness is that in payment you expect something in return. Yes, for the favor you're doing. In forgiveness you let it go free of charge. Yes? So you might have some feeling or something like that, but in terms of an agreement, you don't have anything.
No, you still have a feeling.
But that's not called a sacrifice.
Of pain, which
Pain. So imagine if you lend money to your brother, and you say, okay, I'm going to lend you this, pay me after 1 month, and then your brother says, I'm unable to pay you after 1 month, and then you say, I forgive you. You're saying you'll be hurt by that? I don't think it's listening now. Wait.
So the Bible also says God forgives people from his own sake. He doesn't need your sheep, blood, nothing.
Yeah, in many passages he does, yeah. Yes, you're right, yeah. In fact, in the case of David, when he committed adultery, yes, he was forgiven. Was he not?
okay. So in the JSP Bible,
Yeah.
22.
Is that the one you believe in?
I make a research about this, but it's really weird because I never heard this. And in the King's Bible,
Yeah, go on, read the same verse. Yeah, go on.
and truly the Son of Man is
22:36. Is that the one you're reading?
no wait 36.
Yeah.
Then he said unto them, but now he that had a purse, let him take it, and likewise his script, and he that hath no sword,
Read it, then give your commentary. Read it.
and he that had no sword, let him
No
sell his
sword.
garment and
No
buy it.
sword. Yes, no. The one who has no sword,
Say unto you that
let him sell his garment, yeah?
must yet be accomplished in me. And he was reckoned among the transgressors of the things.
What happened, John? Your voice was very loud the last time when you were reading a different passage. All of a sudden it went down. Okay, anyway, look, I can find you many such verses, my friend. Your view about Jesus will change if you read the whole of the New Testament and the Old Testament as well. I'm surprised he said that Jesus is not the Lord of the Old Testament because there were many atrocities in the Old Testament. This is someone who believes in the incarnation of Jesus. I can't believe you're saying this now. That just because it doesn't agree with your pacifist, logical, rational nature, all of a sudden you just disregard God now. You really have to...
I don't have, as I said, anyway, you were right. The passage is there.
Okay, so
I
you
will-
said you're going to change your
I
view about
will-
Jesus.
I will-
Are you
I
going
mean,
to change
I
your
haven't-
view about
no,
Jesus now?
Yes. I mean, I need to go through that passage. Like take my time. Yeah. So I will read it again.
What are the money
and
changes?
see,
What do you think?
Understand why in that context he said that. But
What about the money changes? What's your view about that? The money changes, you know, in the synagogue, when Jesus, he basically made a whip and he drove them all out.
Yeah. I know that passage. Yeah. He was angry because they were making money in the church.
So, would you do that?
Which represent the Vatican anyway.
Would you?
It's fine.
Would you do that? Would you drive out people with a whip?
I think there's nothing wrong to be angry. Okay, there's nothing wrong to be angry. Okay,
He wasn't just angry; he wanted to use violence against them. Why would he create a whip otherwise?
he was.
It wasn't a
I
duster.
don't know. I
It
don't
was
know
actually a whip.
Yeah, but he wasn't whipping anyone.
How do you know he wasn't whipping anyone?
He's not written. So.
Oh, so you would actually.
If you look at,
Would you terrorize people with a whip? You know what? Whip is not something like a duster. It actually terrorizes people. The ones who even see them whipping, it scares them really. The whole purpose of a whip is not that.
He was angry and he was showing that he was angry. He didn't use the whip against anyone. And if he were, probably they would have put it in the scripture. But anyway,
Would you do that?
I think that if you look at the
John, would you do that?
No,
Would you do
wait,
that yourself?
If you look at the
So he's trying to be more holy than Jesus even now.
If you
Holier
look at
than
the-
Jesus, wow.
If you look at the
That's a good title for you guys. Holier than Jesus.
if you look at the consistency of the character in the gospel, you will notice that Jesus, if you know the character, he wasn't. You can infer from all the passages.
You haven't read it.
He wasn't.
I had to show you a passage. My friend, with all due respect, you haven't read your Bible.
There are four gospels. And you mentioned one passage which I may have missed, or maybe I don't remember.
I can give you several other passages like this. How many have you missed? I don't know. Because you, with all due respect,
Okay.
haven't read even the Gospels.
Okay, so I would like to see.
Is that a fair
But anyway,
assessment?
Now I need to go.
But is that a fair assessment about you? You haven't read most of the Gospels.
No, I read the gospel.
No, most of it you haven't read.
No, I read most of the gospel.
So you haven't found anything that is contrary to the pacifist nature of Jesus in the Gospels.
Sorry? The blind?
A blind eye means did he just ignore it? Did he ignore the ones which were not a pacifist nature of Jesus? Have you ignored those passages?
No. I know there's passages where Jesus has been very straight also, like in judgment, especially with the Pharisees. He was always very, very angry with the Pharisees.
Not just the Pharisees. Do you remember the Samaritan woman who came for his help? Do you remember what he called her?
Oh, yeah.
What did he call her?
He said, he didn't call her directly. He just was referring. He said, don't give to
The bread of the children
pigs.
to the dogs.
Dogs. Yeah.
If somebody calls someone in your family a dog, would you be offended?
Yeah, sometimes you use very strong words.
I think he's worth the shit.
This is not only offensive. This is a bit racist as well, because you know who the children of God are. Sorry, who the children are. And do not cause the bread of the children to the dogs. Do you know who the children are in this context?
People try to speak to him, you can't.
You guys, definitely not you. It's the Jews.
You want who sings.
So everyone other than the Jews, he considered them as dogs.
Always on the thing, you know.
What do you mean? Come on, I'm not kidding.
You're going too far now because
Okay, you explain that passage to me. I do not cast the bread of the children to the dogs. You explain that to me. Go on. With all due respect, go on. You explain it to me.
to the dogs, you're referring to the Jews.
No, who are the children? I do not cast the bread of the children to the dogs. Who are the children here?
The children may be referred to everyone who follow him.
No, the children are the Bani Israel, the children of
Because
Israel.
There is also passages in which it talks about Jesus, if you see Jesus in his ministry, he hasn't got problem. Like he doesn't distinguish between who is a Pharisee, who is he's more like.
Sorry, he doesn't distinguish between the Pharisees and the other?
No, he distinguish, but
Yeah.
he's not like saying, oh, because someone is part of a group, so that.
So why did he call
doesn't-
this woman and a
so
kind of dogs?
He was
Why?
talking with the woman. He was talking with anyone. He healed the one who had like.
But he didn't want to heal her. He didn't want to heal her daughter. That's the reason he said, go away. Initially, he says, I have not come except for the children of Israel. So the context is there already. So his first response was this: I have not come except for the children of Israel. Yes? And
There's other passages in which Jesus
and wait,
said
wait,
that
wait.
I came
Wait,
for the
wait.
sinner and not for the.
yeah, but I'm not talking about the other passage. I'm talking about these passages.
Don't just use a passage to.
No, but it looks like you have. It looks like you have ignored many passages,
Don't make me,
which
don't
goes.
make me fool, because I know.
I don't think I'm fooling you. No. I'm not here to fool you.
I know there's many passages, and you're just taking one passage to say that.
Did I
Jesus
take one
was
passage?
just-
How many passages did I show him? And all of them he's saying, oh, this is an exception. It's an exception. This one's exception. This one I didn't read. I never came across this. I mean,
he was also talking about.
it looks like
the
everything
Jews-
that is
the
negative
Jews-
to Jesus,
the Jews-
you're just ignoring it. So once again, who are the children in this passage?
Yeah, but maybe in that.
No.
passage-
Answer the question. Who are the children?
I don't know.
I just told
I'm
you.
not very knowledgeable.
But you said you have read most of the gospel. Now you're saying you're not knowledgeable.
I'm not
Whom do I believe?
knowledgeable who he was referring to.
Have you read the gospels or not?
Because you
Simple
need to-
question, my
you
friend.
need to- Yes, I read the gospel.
You read that? Have you read this passage?
I mean,
Have you read
also-
this passage?
You also need to consider that this is, most of the gospel I read them in Italian. So some of the passages I find it a bit difficult to contextualize.
My friend, your English is pretty good.
I know, but I never, I never been, I haven't been reading the.
So unless the
Bible.
Italian gospels do not have this,
I haven't
then
been
you can have a
reading-
point.
I haven't been reading the Bible in English because in these years I haven't been reading the Bible.
Okay, here it is.
But anyway,
First Corinthians, before you go, last point. 1 Corinthians 15:24. Sorry, 15, I'll read it from 15:23.
It's very late now.
Okay, only 3 verses here. It says here, 1 Corinthians 15:20, this is 25, yeah? For he must reign until he has put all his enemies under his feet. You know who's a he? That's Jesus. Yes? Until he's put all his enemies under his feet. Let me finish, and then you give a commentary.
But it means that could be interpreted in many different ways. Putting his feet will mean that you are above them.
Exactly, isn't
No,
even read it yet.
you're above them. You're like you know.
Sorry,
who
I'm
is,
like what?
Like under his feet, like you.
Enemies, he's using the word enemies there. What does enemies mean?
Yeah, someone who is against him.
And where does he put his enemies? Under his feet.
Yeah, but this can be like that justly will be done. You can be interpreted in many different ways. It doesn't mean that you need to.
At least let me finish the passage so you
like
understand.
to walk on them and.
I didn't say literally under his feet, okay? Under his feet means gets rid of them. Okay, and it says here, the last enemy to be destroyed is death. For he has put everything under his feet. Now when it says that everything has been put under him, it is clear that this does not include God himself. Okay? Who put everything under Christ? When he has done this, then the Son himself will be made subject. Yes?
Yeah, you're talking about this is not.
Let me
These
finish.
are not the gospel.
Let me
these
finish.
are letters to the Colossians.
Let me finish.
These are letters to the
Is
Colossians.
it from God or not?
Yeah, but it's not. Jesus said many things, or like very anti. Not. Did you define it? Not,
I can show you, but you said you don't have time.
Not,
That's why I said I'll show you this
not,
quickly.
Pacifico.
Yeah.
This is not Jesus who's talking.
Have you got time?
So,
I can show
I don't
you if
understand
you want.
why
But you said you don't have time.
I don't understand why you're using that passage.
I'll tell you why.
We were
I'll tell you why.
discussing about Jesus
If you let me finish, I'll
being
tell you why.
Pacific. Yeah.
Hold on. It says here, anyone. Sorry, where did I lose?
This is the letter to the Colossians.
Yeah, I know.
Is the New Testament?
But is
after the gospel.
it from God or not?
As I said, I'm not that sort of Christian who takes the Bible as the word of God. We've already discussed this. I don't know why you keep making this question. I'm said I don't take the Bible, any Bible, as the word of God, inerrable word of God. I think that in many passages of the Bible there's a lot of truth, and I think that they can be considered as being inspired. I love the book of Job. I love Proverbs. I love the Psalms. I love the Gospels. There's so many nice, or Genesis I think is brilliant in many passages. In the way it describes, you know.
So in other words, you're cherry picking.
There's so many things. Yes,
So all the pacifist verses
I'm like
are
Richard
good for him.
Dawkins.
All the things that doesn't agree with his whims and desires, he gets rid of
On
them.
this topic, I agree with Richard Dawkins.
Richard
Dawkins said that, but this applies not just to Christian. I think it applies to Muslim and to other people. That we usually pick and choose from the book.
You
that
do
is-
actually. We don't do.
yes.
We accept it as a whole, the
Yes.
Quran, as from Allah. We
Yes,
don't pick
but
and choose like the way
yeah,
you do.
but
And I
don't
know many
think-
Christians who don't pick and
yeah,
choose like you
I
either.
don't think that in your like you know, in the posters or whatever in your book you put the verses, the horrible verses of the Quran, and to show, like, to attract people to Islam. I don't think that you show them passages. The passages are hidden, and then when someone
Passage is
asks-
hidden. The Quran is public.
Yes,
What are you
yes,
on
it's
about?
public, yes, but you don't. Yeah, but you don't.
We live in an age of internet where anyone can go and check anywhere.
There's so many
We don't
horrible
live.
passages
We don't live in
the
the cave
Bible.
anymore.
They don't want to research. That's their problem.
In Quran, both. In
Why
both.
you're saying it's hidden? I want to know why you're saying it's hidden. In the age of information,
No, but you
It's not
don't-
hidden anymore.
But you don't show them, like, you don't publicly show these passages.
how do you know
When-
we don't show it
when
publicly?
some-
How do you know? Have you actually researched every
I would
Muslim?
like to see. I mean, I've got some of your books, like the, you know, talk about Islam with all these, and there's none of the passages that can be found there. Are
None
like,
can be found where? In the
yeah.
Quran?
Oh, they talk about, like the greatest of Muhammad or whatever.
Sorry,
all their own nice,
what?
the
The what of
Pacific, the grander, like the, you know, so all these passages, they're all Pacific, they're all nice. There's nothing. No.
How many
nothing
books of
referred
Islam
to-
have you read?
No,
Let's
no,
see.
no
You haven't
referred
read
to-
your own Bible. How many books of Islam have you read?
No. I just
Give me one name of a book of Islam you read. Go on. Give me one name. Only one.
No.
Only one.
No. I started reading the Quran.
So have you read any books on Islam?
Yeah. No,
Give me a name.
The small, like they gave me some of these small books. Like,
A booklet?
A booklet.
Yeah. So in
I
a small,
started reading
listen. In a small booklet, it must have a title, and if the title is about a specific passage or a specific topic, they will talk about that topic. They will not talk about everything in the Quran, will they?
No.
Now wait.
All
With
the
all due
passages
respect,
where God
with all due
doesn't
respect, from
like
what I've
the-
noticed, you haven't
the
read your own
unbeliever,
Bible.
God will punish the unbeliever. God will do this.
Yeah, but that's
will
no
do that.
secret. It's in the Quran, and the Quran is
you know,
public.
and all these passages, like where God, like, you know, will punish. You know, all this fear.
It's all in the
punishment,
Quran,
fear,
bro. It's all in the Quran. It's not
and fear,
private.
Punishment. It's all about fear and punishment. I think it's just a way to kind of put fear on people.
So why is Islam the fastest
don't
growing
really
religion with
understand.
all
I
that
don't really
punishment? Tell me.
understand.
If
And
it
I
was
don't-
so,
I don't
listen.
see how can you see that.
Listen,
These
I don't know why
the
you're.
inerrant word of God.
Okay, look, if you don't want to
If you
believe,
want to believe that, go for it.
Look,
I'm
look,
happy for
it's
you.
not for me to
If
tell
you
you.
want to see this
It's
as
not
a
for me
word
to
of
force
God.
you to believe what you don't want to believe, but from the discussions that we have had, it looks like even you are suspicious about your own Bible.
Yes, of
Yes?
course I am.
Now-
and
now-
I agree.
now
and-
your
and I have no
criteria-
problem to say that in
Can
the
I
Bible
can I
there's so
ask you
many
what's your
things I don't agree
criteria?
with.
What's your criteria to
My
decide?
conscience, okay?
Okay,
It's
so
my
in other
conscience.
words, whatever is your whims and desires, you decide.
No, it's not just.
Well, it is
about-
your. If it's your
No,
conscience, it's
no,
your whims and desires.
No, because the conscience is not about whims and desires.
What is conscience then?
Is something, is a feeling. For example, as I said, if you
and
see,
desires.
if you look at something,
Your feeling, your own understanding, your own logic, your own
not
rational.
always. No, because sometimes because sometimes you got feelings that they takes you somewhere that you feel is not right for you or for the person. You may have the desire to do something, which, like, or for example, your genes, or like maybe you may have a sexual desire, and you know that maybe it's not right for that person, and so you got your conscience is telling you, no, that's not.
No,
right.
I'm not saying
even if you got your genomes in your biology, who is pushing.
But we are not
you.
talking about your desires of evil that you don't want to do.
So
That's
conscience
different.
is a very clear concept, and I think that everyone, and also.
Can the conscience be
by the
wrong?
way-
Can the
by-
conscience be wrong?
By the way, yes. Also,
Yes?
the conscience of the people.
No,
who are
can your
ma-
conscience be wrong?
Yes. Maybe,
So your assumption
conscience-
about the Bible or the
yeah.
Quran, can it
Wait,
be wrong?
Let me finish this. My conscience be wrong, as well as the conscience of the people who are the authority in Islam, who decide what needs to be considered and interpreted this way, and what needs
Only
to be
Islam?
considered
What about
and
Christianity?
interpreted in that way.
What about
It's
Christianity?
in both.
Okay,
In
so
both.
so in other words, you do not believe in the scriptures.
both.
Listen,
In both.
in other words, you
It's
do not
about
believe in the
everyone.
scriptures which are from God. You would rather believe your conscience. Is that right?
I try to follow my conscience, and when I see that my conscience is completely against the evidence or whatever, so then I usually
Okay,
follow
you're not using your conscience only. Let me ask you this question. If you happen to see someone who has been convicted of rape, yes, how would you punish them? Just using your conscience only. How would you punish them? Or would you not punish them at all?
someone who's doing rape.
Yeah, who's been convicted of rape.
I think we got pretty good law on that. I think they need to go in jail, and they need to be re-educated.
How long for? How long for?
I don't know. I don't know the laws.
Now you're using on other people? Why? You said your own consciousness. What happened? Why did you suddenly depend on the law of the
I
land?
put them in jail
For how long?
Until when they done a program to recovery, and I can be.
Oh, you mean a rehabilitation program?
Yes, an
Okay.
rehabilitation program in jail.
Right. How long for?
Until I can see that there is clear, how can I say, improvement, or that person has actually recognized what they've done, and there is actually, yeah, they
Okay, give me-
we can kind of understand that they
Give
recover
me a max.
from-
Give me a max number of time that you'll put them in that prison.
For
Max.
rape.
Give me a max. In your
It
conscience.
depends on so many. You need to consider so many different variables. You need to consider what was the state of a person, or what was the social situation. What was he persuaded by someone? What the age? What is the motive? You need to look at many things. You can't just say, oh, for the rape. Rape, it can be in different contexts. It can be in different time. It can, it depends. Has he raped a child of 10 years old, or has he raped a woman who was showing teeth for like an hour, and she was persuading him to have sex, and then all of a sudden she changed her mind? I mean, you need to consider a lot of different.
Okay, I said, when I say convicted, listen, the only reason somebody gets convicted is because the judge looks at all those factors.
Yes.
And afterwards, they convict him of rape. That's why I told you to save time, because I know you'll go into this psychoanalysis again. I told you he's convicted. Okay? Convicted means he's been found guilty that he is a rapist. Now the question to you is, how will you punish them? You said a rehabilitation program.
It depends on all the variables.
I'll give you a cigar.
Okay.
A man who's mentally unstable. He rapes, let's say, a 10-year-old kid, and he's probably like,
Let's say he rapes a teenager who's coming from school, who's coming back from school, and he rapes her on the way.
social situation normal.
Yes.
Third part has a beautiful upbringing.
He just felt the urge to rape her because he's been watching too much pornography, maybe. Yes, which is really a factor in many cases. Yes.
I don't know, like about 20 years of jail, and then
20 years
with
of
a
jail?
program of rehabilitation,
That's really good for a pacifist, actually. I would.
something like that, and then I will.
And let's say-
I will make a program of rehabilitation. And
Let's say he comes out of jail after 20 years, and then he rapes again. What will you do then? Second reoffending, second
again
time.
in jail, probably.
Another rehabilitation program? Another 20 years? Let's say he does it again. Then what?
No, no.
And by the way,
Maybe-
this is not unrealistic. Reoffending of many rapists is a real thing. So it's not just not something I'm just telling you out of a hypothetical situation. I'm telling you of real situation, because by the way, in this country they would give maybe 2 or 3 years, not 20 years to a rapist
At that stage, I would probably put them in jail until the end.
until they die. Okay? And that is the law according to you. What is the law according to God? Let's see which one you obey now. What's the law according to God in your New Testament for a rapist?
Again, to my New Testament.
Yes.
You still don't understand my point.
I understood
My
your point.
no,
I'm
my
saying
point-
because your
my
laws.
point- My point is that I grew up as a Christian, and I think that Jesus is the core of Christianity, and I try to follow Jesus as an example. And I think.
So what's his
it's
example for a
morally-
rapist? What's his example for a rapist? What is the punishment?
Oh, it would be better for them to have a cord around their neck, he said.
Say again?
It would be better for them to have a cord, but he didn't say you have to take them and put a cord around their neck.
Where does it say that to put a cord around a rapist's neck? Where does it say that? I think you just made that up.
No. This is Jesus' word.
For a rapist.
Oh yes.
What did he say again?
He said it would be better for them. No, for who scandalize one of the children. He
Thank
said.
you.
The children, yeah. So he said it would be better for them to.
My question to you was about a
cord
rapist.
around their neck.
My question was about a rapist. Once again, from the example of Jesus, from what he has taught you, because you said your best example was Jesus, what would be the punishment according to the New Testament? Because what he just said is actually not in the New Testament, to put him for 20 years in jail and a rehabilitation program. And that's why I told you earlier, whatever ideas that you have about the different ways of life, about the punishments, about the reward, is from your liberal, secular upbringing. It's not from the Bible,
And
my
I think,
friend.
and I think that's a great.
So your
achievement.
example is
And
not that of Jesus, but of liberalized
I think that
person.
our law has a great. We have a great achievement in society, whereby we can decide together. I mean, based on our conscience, and try to find whatever, and try to understand based on the circumstances, based on the information available, and try to decide what is the best, rather than taking a book old like 1,000 and say, oh, this is what is written in the book. That's right. Let's do it.
Why didn't you say that from the
Absolutely-
beginning? It would have saved us so much
that's
time.
Absolutely.
If
crazy.
your entire
That's just
listen,
absolutely crazy.
if your entire moral compass is based on the liberal secular
Just-
world
it's
that
just- listen, honestly.
I listen to you, now listen to me.
This
You said earlier
is
Jesus
very,
was your
very-
example.
this is
Now you have
dangerous.
completely backtracked and said secularism is my example. Have you realized that? For a person who studies psychology, you keep contradicting yourself every time. Yes,
necessarily.
you said your example was that of Jesus. Did he not say that? And all of a sudden it became the secular world. My God, you have made a complete U-turn from Jesus to a secular world now. Wait. What is the example of Jesus in a rapist situation? You know, for a murderer, for a rapist, for a thief, there is no punishment in your New Testament for these guys. And that's why when I asked you earlier, will you even have an army for your nation of which you are the head of state? You said no. Neither in a secular world you would fail, in a world where Jesus is followed, you will fail. That is what happens to someone who only believes in his own consciousness.
Okay, so what would be the punishment then for someone who has raped?
If you're asking me from the point of view from his... Now wait a minute. I asked you this question from the New Testament. Do you have an answer for that or not, for a rapist?
I don't know.
Good, then go read your Bible before you tell us what is wrong with the Quran or the Bible. You really have to read your Bible. And don't just depend on your own self. Your Bible. Because that is what you said. Your whims and desires is what's ruling you, my friend. It's not the Bible. It's not Jesus.
I think that whoever can follow his conscience.
Anyway, I think we should wrap up now. Because you have been here a long time. It's not fair to you either. But thank you for your time once again.
The conscience.
Your conscience failed you. I told you example already. I said it because in the liberal sense you went against.
If you're honest with yourself.
Yeah, but that's subjective, isn't it? When you say honest with myself, it's subjective.
You just need to be honest with yourself.
Yeah, but what does that mean? Honesty itself, in the case what you're saying, like how much punishment a rapist will get or a murderer will get, are you honest to yourself that you will not need an army? Are you honest with yourself? Are you looking at the real world and then being honest with yourself?
In
saying
this
that,
word, yes, of course I would need it.
yeah, but that's the question I asked you. Didn't I ask him? I asked him about this one. I didn't ask you about Mars or Jupiter. I asked you if you were ruling a country, would you need an army? And you said no.
Yeah,
Exactly.
but if I had to create a word,
Yeah, but we don't live in a utopia where you have a fantasy.
wouldn't need it.
I didn't ask you about your fantasy. I asked about the real world.
in this word, maybe I would have an army.
Now it's
but
a
I
maybe.
would- but I
Still a
wouldn't-
maybe?
but-
Still a maybe?
I wouldn't have an army. But
Thank you.
I wouldn't attack anyone.
If they attacked you, what would you do?
Maybe I would try to defend. Yeah.
That's called using force. Defend means using force. So you'll have to buy weapons. You'll have to train your army. You'll have to show them how to shoot the enemy, and you'll have to shoot the enemy ultimately which is a part of the defense. See what happens when you use your consciousness only? You fail all around, my friend, and you have proved it. Anyway, thanks for your time, mate.
conversation wasn't getting anywhere. Now look, it's got everywhere. Let's be honest.
Right.
It's fine.
Anyway, thanks a lot, mate. Yeah. Jazakallah khairan. Okay. So,
Anyway, I will think about this and
yes, please do. That is the whole purpose of our discussion here. And if I have, if I have offended you in any way, I do apologize for that. But the whole purpose is to educate, basically.
I can see that, of course, there are some places in which I may
I'm going to wrap
a little
up.
bit on confused and surely confusing many things. But yeah, I'm confused. But at the same time, I think that I always try to honestly look at. It's not about like my desire. Honestly, I try to
Even though you say it's not your desire, it looks like it is your desire, my friend.
it's really right. What I really feel is right, but not because I want it.
Yeah, I know, but that's where the delusion is, my friend. It's called a delusion for a reason. Because the whole idea, the whole purpose of the Satan is to make you feel that you're right and everybody else is wrong. This is how he plays the game. You see what I mean? Even though it might not be considered as ego, arrogance, your own whims and desires take precedence here. Yes. And this is, I think somebody gave it to you. It is Nazms. Because in Surah At-Tawbah, this is exactly what Allah says. That they, the Jews and Christians, took their rabbis and their monks to be the lords besides Allah by obeying them in the things that were made lawful or unlawful. Yes? Because these Jews and Christians in the old times, they used to say that what we say is right. So they used to ignore many things that God said. And that is the reason Jesus used to rebuke the Pharisees. Because they were using the same principle which you're using, my friend. Because ultimately they said that what we say goes, how we interpret goes. Because everything they said, our consciousness tells us better. So regardless of what Moses told them, or what other prophets told them, they would disregard all that, and they say, I feel this is a better way. And that is how they fell headfirst into the wrong things, which they were rebuked by Jesus later on. But anyway, thanks for your time. Try to look into this, because it's very important that you read and understand the scriptures. And I suggest that you read the Quran once again, rather than reading it from cover to cover. Ask people if you have any questions, and then come to conclusions based on that. All right? Okay.
Next time I'm not sure. Next time
I think we gave him the Quran. We gave him a Quran already. Yeah, we gave him already a copy. Last time we gave it to him. All right, Jazakallah khairan, everyone. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's been a long discussion.
Yeah, it was.
I think it's pretty long already.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Hope this video was helpful for you. This may help others too, so please consider sharing, and we will bring more videos in the future, inshallah. So consider subscribing and you won't miss any. Jazakallahu khairan.